Welcome to Scoop World Order. Is a big Tuesday show. The coaches are back from being on the road all of May recruiting. It's time to grind a little bit. These guys are staff meetings, official visits, camps. There's no rest for the wicked now at the Woody Hayes because these guys have a loaded up June coming up with these official visits now, being in the middle of summer. So these guys are going to have some long hours coming over the coming weeks. Got together with some of the media today. They said their usual nothing. We're going to go over some of that stuff. We did glean a few things, but it was a nice array of coach speak all day, every day. So we're going to break down the couple of things that we might have learned. Not a lot. And we're going to break down what this June is about to look like. So that being said, as always, thank you for joining us. As always, click that like button if you want to help us out a little bit. Hit that subscribe button. Subscribing is a great way to take care of the channel and help it keep growing. Send this along to your friends, have them subscribe. Again, it's been growing like crazy, so thank you. And also click that alert bell. That alert bell will let you know when we go live, so you guys never miss one of these episodes. I know a lot of you guys are on here every single time, so you guys are obviously doing the alert, so I appreciate that. And as always, shout out where you're from. I saw Portsmouth, Ohio. I've seen South Florida is huge on here. Naples is heavy on here. You guys are from everywhere, but I love seeing where you guys are from. So shout that out in the chat, shout it out in the comments. I love reading where you guys are watching this from. So we appreciate you. As always, I'm going to bring in my good friend Nevada Buck. Nevada, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. It's even though my head is just spinning from all the coach pablum and stuff that I heard today, the cliches and take it one game at a time, and we're just gonna line them up and work out really hard over the summer. And so yeah, I don't know how I could have lived without listening to those coach interviews today. But we're here to break it down, tell you what they said, what they wanted to say, and probably what they meant when they were saying it. So yeah, we can get right after that. But yeah, that was quite a day.
Yeah, it's like reading like a manual for how to sell insurance. It's that boring, it's that bland, it's that dull. But that's what they do. I mean, but those guys, they do it. It's a necessary evil to talk to the media, but they were there. They were all there at once, so it was spread pretty thin. Jim Knowles was popular. Obviously, Brad Hartline, after his ATV side-by-side accident, was very popular. There was asked about that. I thought he did a really nice job responding to that. I didn't think the questions were particularly great or appropriate, but he took them and he did a good job with it. Justin Fry talked about the offensive line. Nevada, we're going to start with Justin Fry because, as always, the most important part of the Ohio State football team is the offensive line, because I did play on the offensive line and I love the offensive line, and everybody is always worried about the offensive line. Did you glean anything from Justin Fry today? He said, shockingly, that there's still competition across the offensive line, and shockingly, he's going to find the best five guys and figure out what combination that is. So, in a land where we've had some really, really stupid people talk about how in the near past we've played four tackles at once, including Paris Johnson at guard, who's the best lineman we've had since Orlando Pace. We didn't bench him for someone who probably wouldn't have gotten drafted. Were you shocked that Justin Fry said he wanted to play the five best guys across the offensive line?
No, that was definitely not shocking. And we've talked about this often, but one of our core values here is trying to make you guys smarter listeners, so that you guys are like you're the most clever when you're talking to your friends about these things. You have the most insight. You're not just taking the party line. That's one thing that Kirk and I will never do. We'll never just serve you the pablum. We'll give you the real deal stuff. And with Justin, what we've been hearing out of the offensive line now, I've been hearing this for months, is that he feels like he's got some dudes in the offensive line. He feels like he's got depth. He feels like he's got guys that can really play across the board, loves the incoming freshmen, loves the guys that were here last year, loves the guys that are returning. And he thinks he's going three deep across the front five. And so I think what you heard today was, we got a lot of dudes. There's going to be a lot of competition. Nobody really knows how it's going to shake out. And I think that's probably the best news that anybody that's listening could possibly have hoped for today, was he's not concerned. It's just, I get asked a lot, no matter what's the offensive line going to look like we start, and it's unknowable right now because I think there's just so many possibilities, but there's so many kids that can play, and so many kids that we've talked about. We've talked about Fitzpatrick a lot on the message board. I mean, there's guys that are coming out of nowhere that really could step in and be starters. And Jacob James, we haven't even seen from spring football because he was injured. He's right there in the mix to start at center. So I think that what you heard today was a coach that's very confident in the fact that he's got a lot of dudes, that he's got a lot of opportunities to shuffle a deck, and no telling how they're going to end up right now. Best guess, you probably end up with Fryer. I just have a sneaking suspicion Fryer's going to slide back over to right tackle. I don't know why I feel that way, but I just think that's his best position. I think he'll be at right tackle. He said today that Donnie Jackson could play any of the positions on the line. I agree with that, but we'll see. But a lot of depth. Best five are going to play. Can't wait for the fall. That's kind of a summary. I saved you 18 minutes of your life. You don't have to listen to the interview. I just gave it to you in 30 seconds. So there you go.
Yeah, it is like Pablum bingo when you listen to some of these things. But I still put Donnie at left tackle. I know everyone thinks I'm nuts, but he's the best guy we have by a country mile in the offensive line room. Put him out at left tackle. I'd put Enoch in at one of the guard spots. He's a fifth-year guy. He's been there a long time. At least give him the first crack at it. The first snap of camp, put him with the ones. He's paid his dues. He's stuck around. He's a guy that started the Michigan game, and for whatever reason, he's with the twos, stuck behind two guards. And center, I don't know if Carson Hinsman did enough. I think he's a good player. But he's really young. Not everybody can be Luke Whippler and start as a year two guy. Jacob James is not going to give that job up for nothing. Again, the players, something you can always say to you and your friends and the people that if you're the one who sounds smart, the players know who the players are. So when Luke Whippler gets up and says, "I think Jacob James is going to be the starting center at Ohio State in 2023," that carries more weight than pretty much anything because those guys, and I'm sure it's his buddy, and I'm sure they're in the same class and whatever, but. He's not going to say that if his boy stinks. Obviously, if it's all even, I think you go with the older guy who's been around and he's stronger, fitter. But I love a super competitive atmosphere at a place like the offensive line where there's five guys that got to play, and none of those guys. You got two guys that are in ink pretty much. I mean, Donnie and Matt Jones are going to start somewhere. Matt can play center. He can play right guard. Put Donnie at left tackle, put him at left guard. And then there's just a host of guys that need to grab a spot. And, the thing about having Paris Johnson, and don't misconstrue this, having a Paris Johnson is a fantastic start on your offensive line at left tackle. But the downside to having Paris and DeJuan at tackle is that the tackles behind them know that unless there's a catastrophic injury, they're not going to play, or they're going to be watching until we're up by 49 points. But when those guys are gone and everything's wide open like it is now, like these summers get hyper competitive. Like the fall camps are hyper competitive. Guys, they don't want to miss time. They don't want to get nobody wants to get injured, but there's varying severities of injury. And man, if I'm in one of these battles, I don't want to miss a minute. I don't want to miss a day. I want to be letter perfect in every aspect that's measurable, from the weight room to conditioning runs to the classroom, like anything that they can measure and they get reports on. I want to be at the top, because I've been in a race, a three-way race for tackle with me and TJ Downing and Tim Schaefer, and I lost the race at the beginning of 2004, and then I just kept coming, and I ended up by week 4 I was starting. So, it's tough, but I mean. Somebody's got to win, and these guys all have ambitions of being all Big Ten, all American, NFL type dudes, and you gotta go win that starting job. So, and I think that as Nevada said, we've got some guys that could do it. I mean, I think we have Josh Fryer, we have Josh Simmons, we have a lot of 3 Joshes now, Josh Padilla too. We've got George Fitzpatrick, we've got Zen, we've got Tigra, and those guys all rotated with the ones, and that's honestly pretty unique. A lot of times when I've been the guy that wrote out these rotations, I didn't have, 7, 8, 9 guys that ran with the first team. We had like 6 maybe, so this is a unique time. And, I think that, when you have all this competition, may the best man win, and good luck to everybody, and, stay healthy. Cause, again, one of the things that people never seem to talk about is like, there's a little bit of luck involved. Cause if somebody sprains an ankle, somebody, pulls a hamstring, and injuries happen in conditioning, they happen in camp, like guys fall behind. And, if you're not practicing, then you're not competing. If you're not competing, you're not winning the job. So, again, it's going to be fascinating to watch through camp. Who goes where. Again, like, if you're trying to win a national championship, I put my best guy at left tackle. That's just always been my philosophy as an offensive line guy. But, it'll be interesting to see what Justin Fry does. Jim Knowles is another guy that has some pretty interesting things to say. He talked about how he hopes that this year there's 11 Tommy Eichenbergs in terms of the speed and the understanding of the defense, because he talked about how Tommy picked the defense up better than anybody last year, and how in year 2, when he was at Oklahoma State, Duke, and all the other places he's been, like there was always a pretty sizable jump in just the understanding, the speed, and just getting to the point where everything was reactionary. What are your thoughts on that, Nevada? I know that you've been really high on the Jim Knowles train year 2. I think that I think the depth and talent is substantially better this year than it was last year. Davidson Igbinosun, Taiwan Malone, CJ Hicks in year 2, Sonny Styles in year 2, even Lorenzo Styles Jr., who is really gunning to start, which I know that seems wildly ambitious for a guy that played receiver at Notre Dame last year. There's a lot of competition in that back end, even in the front end, and rotating those linebackers a little bit. What are your thoughts on Jim Knowles and seeing that there's more unity in the front in the defense, and that there's more guys that are reacting as quickly as Tommy did last year?
Well, make no mistake, I'm the conductor of the Jim Knowles train. And so, like, for everybody that wants to jump aboard, it's time, man. It's time, because the train's leaving the station, starting to chug along. Knowles talked today about rotating the linebackers a little bit more so that Tommy and Steele stay fresh through the rigors of the season. He talked specifically about something we've been talking about for a long time, about how they're going to use Sonny Styles. They use him in kind of a nickel on the early downs, rolling back to a deep safety, basically playing at all 3 spots. They talked about Davison needing to put on a little bit of weight when he came here. Been working with Coach Mick in terms of increasing his strength. I just could not be more excited about seeing the defense. I think the defense is going to take a huge step up. I love what I'm hearing from Knowles about it. I love what I'm hearing from inside the room about it. I think the guys have kind of figured it out. A guy that we don't talk a lot about is a guy like Cody Simon. Cody Simon could start at 110 schools in college football right now, and instead he's our backup. So when he comes in there, I mean, he's a heck of a player. And Knowles has figured out how to use him, and I think that, like I said, we're going to see more rotation out there on the defense. We're going to see a defense that stays fresher. We're going to see a defense that has a better understanding about what they're trying to accomplish. And I think it's going to be an absolutely dominant defense this year. A top 5 statistical defense in college football this year. You can mark it down, hold me to it, and like I said, I will save spots on the train for everybody that's listening and everybody out there in the internet land. Choo-choo, let's go, Jim Knowles. I'm driving it.
Do you think that the defense statistically could figure and finish higher than the offense in 2023 statistically? Total defense versus total offense.
I do. I think that's not a crazy thought. Even though, I mean, the offense is going to be prolific. Ryan Day loves to pad those stats, and but with a question mark at quarterback that I don't have many questions on the defense. I've got a big question mark about the quarterback position right now for Ohio State, which is not to say that I'm dissing on Devin Brown or dissing on Cal McCord, but I just don't know. I haven't heard enough from the people inside the program that are like, oh my God, Nevada, you got to see this guy. This guy's lights out. He's unbelievable. He's going to get it done. Don't worry about it. We're going to move the ball. I haven't heard that yet. That doesn't mean it's not happening. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but I haven't heard it. And so I think, if I was betting offense to defense, I'd probably say 65% the offense over the defense, but it's not inconceivable the defense could outshine the offense this year, despite the weapons, despite returning 99% of our rushing and 97% of our receiving. It certainly could be a defensive-led effort this year by the Buckeyes and by Jim Knowles.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the defense wrecked the offense this year, and granted, it wasn't at full strength with no Marvin and no Emeka. So obviously, you take out the two best receivers in college football, it's going to look a little bit different. But I mean, I think that there's a lot of experience. I think there's a lot of guys that are trying to get to the league. I think guys like JT and Jack are going to take a big step. Those guys both want to go 3-and-out. So they gotta put some more sacks on the board and have some more consistent production to be those 3-and-out guys. And I think that benefits Ohio State. I think, Mike Hall, Tyleek, putting Taiwan Malone in at 3 technique. There's a lot to be excited about. Tommy's, he'll be preseason All-American by every magazine that's ever produced. Steele's preseason All Big Ten type guy. Then you've got CJ, who's like the young Thundercat. Then you've got, you've got like a lot of guys to be excited to watch, honestly, because I don't know. So we're going to take a couple questions because you guys are really bringing good questions. I can't ignore this any longer. Tyler asks, Nevada, and this is tough, what is the strength of the defense this year in your opinion? Because there's a bunch of, you can really make an argument for at least the first 2 levels. The third level has the potential to be a strength, but what is the strength of the defense to you, Nevada?
Well, clearly it starts at linebacker. I mean, when your best player in the field, is your middle linebacker, your captain, your war daddy, your guy. I've always thought defenses started inside out, and when you've got 2 just exceptional linebackers like Steele and Tommy, but then, like I said, when you go to Cody and when you go to CJ and when you go to Sonny Styles, I mean, you're not talking about huge drop-offs here, and you're talking about guys that are just big playmakers. Guys that are different, guys that can create the turnovers, can create those kind of momentum-changing plays that we've really been lacking on the defense for the last couple of years. And that's kind of what we're getting with the defense. And now you've got guys at defensive back that can play. Davison obviously was a huge get, and having Josh Proctor come back as a 6-year guy at safety. You've got veterans across the board. You've got young guys. You've got transfers. You've got guys that are looking to go 3-and-out. But like I said, it starts at linebacker. It's one of the best linebacking cores that we've had in a while at Ohio State. And, like Tommy Eichenberg, I really wish people could go back in time and remember what we were talking about Tommy Eichenberg last year. Because last year I dropped the nugget that was like, hey, Tommy Eichenberg ran really fast, and so I think he's a he's a 4.5 guy or whatever it was in the 40, and I got ripped for that. They're like, he's tough, Borland. He's the slowest linebacker to ever play at Ohio State. He's terrible. And in 1 year he's gone from that to AJ Hawk. And to not expect that there's going to be I'm not saying that he's going to go from tough Borland to AJ Hawk to Superman, but you can expect guys to make an improvement. And the reason that he improved so much is he's the first guy that got what the defense was trying to do. And so he played faster. He put himself in the right spot. He wasn't always in the right spot, i.e. the Michigan game. But look, everybody can have a bad play or two. And he played terrific all season long. But you can expect the other guys to make similar jumps. You can look at Tyleek and Mike Hall and JT and Jack and look at these guys and say, these guys are going to make a similar leap in production. And if they get anywhere near the type of leap that we saw out of Tommy Eichenberg, this is going to be one fun defense to watch. And I personally can't wait to see it.
Got my man Paul in New Albany. He's on every show. What's up, Paul? I'm glad you're feeling better, my friend. Nevada. So I think this is a good little debate. Who has the better year this year, JT Tuimoloau or Jack Sawyer?
Well, tough one. I mean, JT, we've talked about this before, but I mean, it really bears repeating. JT Tuimoloau had what I consider to be in the running for the greatest defensive performance in OSU history in the Penn State game, where he had 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, a fumble recovery. I mean, he did it all. Pick 6, did it all. Turned the game around. And then I believe he had 1 sack the rest of the season, maybe 1.5 or whatever. I mean, he didn't do much. So if I'm guessing, I'm going with Jack Sawyer to have the better year. I mean, Jack had a really quiet 4.5 sack or 3.5 sacks or 4.5 sacks or whatever he had last. Oh man, wow, what was that? so,
I,
so
I think you're probably right on that. I think he's got I think Jack's probably going to have the bigger year. I'm on your train with that because he's not going to be playing the Jack position anymore, which is out of pocket and kind of silly. And then, he's going to have a higher share of snaps compared to what he had last year because last year he probably played 60% as many snaps as JT did, and he had more sacks, he had more production. So I think that's an easy pick in my opinion, and people think I'm crazy for that, but he's more productive on less snaps. So I don't know how you ignore that and and then he's gonna be playing back in his regular position instead of playing the jack thing. So I don't know what. Yeah, I think. What do you if you had to project sacks for the year? What do you give them each of them?
I'm giving him double digits. I'm giving Jack 11 and I'm giving JT 10. And I think it's going to be. I think they're going to be uber productive this year. I think we're going to see a similar increase in production that we saw from Tommy Eichenberg at the defensive end spot. I've watched Jack Sawyer in practice. I've watched Jack Sawyer make really good offensive tackles look silly with some of the stuff that he does. I haven't seen that in the games yet. I have not seen it translate to the games, but I know it's there. I mean, he's going to do stuff this year, and people are going to go, "Oh my goodness, that guy looks a lot more like Nick Bosa or Joey Bosa than anything that we thought that we thought he was stiff. We thought he was a guy that was just kind of a guy defense end. No, he's really good. He's really good. Whether he was playing out of position or whether whatever it was, I think it changes this year, and I think they both get a double-digit sacks, and that's going to be a huge difference for the OSU defense.
We got our JJ consternation, our daily JJ. Buckeye Chuck, you've got a lot of stuff on here about JJ, Aaron Nolan jumping. I honestly, I know that JJ visited Georgia and him and Dylan Raylor are best buddies now again or whatever. But guys, this is like a bidding process. This is what college football is now. Like if there's no drama, if there's no, oh my God, I might go to Georgia or I might go to Bama or I might go to Miami or Florida State or Florida or Texas A&M or whatever, then you have no leverage when it comes to gaining more NIL money. So I mean, this is what's gonna be. Like you're not gonna have these kids that commit and they just kind of quietly go along and then they sign up and they show up in winter semester and then they're ready to ball out and kill it. Like these guys are gonna go on visits. They're gonna go see what kind of numbers they can get. They're gonna come back to Ohio State with the numbers, and Ohio State's gonna have to match the numbers. So again, I think that's what it is. Again, we live in a world now where, listen to me very clearly, because this is going on. I hear from some of the top agents in the world on this one. Kids get paid under the table to go on visits. They also get paid. I'm not saying JJ Smith is, but kids get paid to go on visits. Kids get offered a lot of money to decommit. And again, not even commit to their own schools, but I mean, this is like the way of the world now. Because again, we've got NIL now. These guys all have agents. Brandon Ennis and Carnell Tate are both represented by Drew Rosenhaus now. So, and these guys, these guys know how to play the game. These guys know how to drum up negotiations. These guys have done free agency bidding wars in the NFL. So they know this is the new wilderness where they're trying to stoke up interest and get guys excited. And, because again, the one thing you guys have to realize, and because I've been around recruiting for 20 years since I was actually recruited by Ohio State, and I was, a low maintenance guy, a lowly heralded guy, no fanfare when I committed, probably more disappointment when I committed, which is fine. I don't care. But who are the most beloved, well-renowned recruits of all time? It's the guys that take it to signing day and they've got the hats on the table, and it's between us and Michigan and like Terrell. Terrell Pryor is the greatest. That's the greatest recruiting story of all time. He postponed his commitment and recommitted, and and all the pomp, and the guys that everybody remembers Von Bell, Raekwon McMillan. These guys take it down to the wire. They take it down to signing day. They got the hats on the table. They pick Ohio State. Like if they just commit, the June of their junior year, then there's no excitement to that, But these kids that are smart, they play it up and they get the they get the anxiety going for Ohio State fans and Buckeye Scoop fans, and and again, I think it's part of the game now. And with NIL, man, you keep going back, and forth with offers. I mean, because that's what it is. It's a bidding war at this point. And so you go back to the foundation and 1870 society and cohesion and say, hey guys, look, this is the new number. Can you guys match this? Okay, I'm still a Buckeye. And for some guys, like JJ, I think JJ's coming to Ohio State no matter what. As long as Brian Hartline's here, and I think that the thing that really cemented is Brian's now the offensive coordinator here. So you don't have to worry about Notre Dame poaching him or some of these other schools poaching him or an NFL team poaching him because, unless he's going to become a head coach, which, he'd have to go to like a really good program to be a head coach for him to leave being the OC at Ohio State. He's good, so I don't worry about JJ at all. But I know every day I get asked about JJ and I'm like, I know him. I know his dad. His dad's an excellent guy, smart guy. They see the money train that is being a wide receiver at Ohio State, being a first round pick. So, I sleep like a baby. But again, this is the game. This is the new game. There's all this smoke and mirrors and schematics that people are going to have to deal with now because of the NIL bidding war that is now here. Because I think, the ideal situation for these kids is they get to go to their dream school, Ohio State, but then they get paid like they're going to, Miami or A&M or one of the crap schools that have a bunch of money, but they don't really have anything else to sell. But that's just my take on it, and I know that takes right. But Nevada, do you have any rebuttal to that? Because I mean, we see this stuff, and again, recruiting will be more dramatic now than at any point in the history of time because of the way NIL is structured. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, don't worry about JJ. JJ's going to be a Buckeye, and as you rightly pointed out, I mean, the thing with Hartline, Ohio State knew that they had to give him the offensive coordinator position. Hartline realizes now he's at a position where he really knows that he has to learn it and show that he's got competency in terms of doing this because it's going to prepare him to the next step, which is going to be he wants to be a head coach. So despite people going, Brian will never leave Columbus, he always wants to be the wide receiver coach at Ohio State. We called BS at them. We're like, come on, guys. That's not true. Nobody really believed. Oh, yes, it was said he never wants to leave. And we're like, no, he's going to leave. That's the thing. Ohio State preempted that by making him the offensive coordinator. He's learning the time. So what this did, it bought Ohio State probably 3-4 years in terms of figuring out what Brian Hartline's going to do. And as long as Brian Hartline's here, you're gonna bring in those wide receivers because those wide receivers are looking at it going, it's nice to make $1 million in NIL or $1.5 million or $2 million or 500,000 or 700,000, but we're talking about 25 million a year in the league. And so anything that you're talking about in terms of NIL pales in comparison to me being the 8th pick in the draft, the 20th pick in the draft, the 11th pick in the whatever it's going to be. And if I go play for Brian Hartline, there's a very good chance I'm going to be taken in the first round of the NFL draft. And if you're taking the first round of the NFL draft, you're talking about generational wealth. So, I think it's a pretty straightforward decision. Whether or not we think that JJ is great, whether we think his dad's great, whether we think anybody's great, or he's not dumb, and he can look at, he can do the numbers, he can do the math. He's got a calculator on his smartphone, and he's looking at it and kind of going, "Wow, I could probably make $200 million in the $200 million in the NFL." I think I'm going to stick with Hartline, and that should make Ohio State fans feel really warm and comfy at night.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it. You get that initial, like Paris Johnson signed 4 years, $28 million, but with a 5th-year option for $15 million or so. So that's $43 million over 5 years, which is great. But when that 5th year is up and he hits free agency and he's 25 years old, he's going to sign for $40 million a year. Trent Williams is at 30. Paris is going to be a 25-year-old franchise left tackle. So he's going to get $40 million a year. So then you do that over 5-6 years, you're looking at 150 to 180. So again, I know these are all silly string numbers and they're all crazy, but it's not. And this is what these people are dealing with. I mean, what's Garrett Wilson's second deal going to look like? He's got Aaron Rodgers for the next 2 to 3 years. He's probably going to lead the NFL in receiving at some point because Garrett Wilson, in my opinion, might be the most talented receiver in the league. And people think I'm nuts and I'm crazy and I'm a homer, but he's that athletic, he's that explosive. And he was playing with the worst quarterbacks in the league last year. He had Flacco, who's like my age. He's 40 years old. And then he's got, and I know Rodgers, but there's different levels of being old and good. And Rodgers is a different level of excellence. Rodgers might be the best pure quarterback that's ever lived. I know that Brady's got the rings, but, I mean, Rogers is just that good. So, Garrett Wilson won the rookie of the year last year with Mike White throwing him the ball and street free agents and Zach Wilson, who's a total moron. So what's he gonna do with Aaron Rodgers now? So when he re-ups, man, he's gonna be making $40 million a year. So again, these are just the numbers that have been put out by Brian Hartline in the last 2, 3, 4 years. Like, look, if you guys stick to the program, keep your nose clean. Marvin's probably going to be a top 3 pick next year. I mean, I imagine, Caleb Williams, Drake May are pretty much locked in as the 1-2 unless they fall on their faces. But those are two A plus blue chip franchise quarterbacks. And no matter how good you are as a wide receiver, if there's a blue chip quarterback, he's going in front of you. That's how it is. Like, I mean, AR-15, Anthony Richardson, the kid from Florida, he went 4 overall, and Florida stunk this past year. But he's a quarterback, and in that league, you need a quarterback. So, again, I don't worry about JJ at all, and I totally get what JJ's doing. You stir it up a little bit, you drum it up a little bit. Again, because our foundations they're getting some money now. 1870, the foundation. I mean, Ennis, he got a bag when he showed up. Tate got a bag when he showed up. So how do you get a bigger bag? Be a little bit more rambunctious on the recruiting trail. I mean, this is kind of is what it is, and I don't like talking about this kind of stuff, but we're getting better at it. Because again, last year and earlier in the year, not very good. We struck out on every portal tackle we offered. We struck out on a lot of portal guys, but all of a sudden, you get Davison Igbinosun, you get Jihad Carter, you get Josh Simmons, you get Taiwan Monk. Like, we were missing on all those guys last year because we weren't as organized and we didn't have the fundraising and we weren't as sharp in terms of the NIL game. But now we're actually getting pretty good at it. So, I don't think it's bad for the guys. And when these freshmen or these 11th graders and 10th graders, these juniors and sophomores are seeing Ennis is driving a new sick car and Tate's got a nice, these guys have a nice apartment. I mean, that doesn't hurt us, guys. I know it's a little different now, but it is what it is. Yeah, I know this was funny. Brass tacks, I love my boy from Eastmore. Appreciate you, my dude. The Jets took Zach Wilson over Justin Fields. Nevada, like, we talk about this every year because, I mean, you had a really, really, really good source say that Fields was going to go 3 to San Francisco. And I couldn't imagine how good the 49ers would be right now if they had Justin Fields at quarterback. But, does it ever surprise you when these NFL teams it's like their minds explode and they try to like do some sort of, it's like they try to see something that really isn't there, and Justin Fields slides down the board when he really should have been probably the second pick in that draft.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how this thing works. I do think that the NFL teams overthink this. You just see it every single year in terms of guys going, Baker Mayfield going number 1, or Wilson was a classic case of somebody that it just screamed mediocre. I mean, he was a guy that played at BYU, and if I'm not mistaken, he wasn't a captain. I think his teammates didn't choose him to be a captain, and that should have been like the biggest warning sign of all time for any NFL team that's going to make this guy the face of the franchise, that they don't even name him a captain. So when he went to the Jets and kind of laid an egg, and as you mentioned, Garrett Wilson balled out last year with Zach Wilson as his quarterback. What's he going to do with Aaron Rodgers and McCole Hardman and Alan Lazard and all the other guys around him? I mean, it's going to be crazy to watch. But like I said, I love watching Ohio State wide receivers. I love watching all Ohio State kids ball out in the league. But the wide receiver position's fun just because we seem to be cranking them out. Next year we've got Marvin that'll go high, top 5. You've got a Mecca who will be a first round pick. And then you're starting to go down to the Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis. We'll have to wait for them for a few years, but those guys are equally talented, and it's just it's a never-ending thing. It's like it's going to end someday when Brian moves on. So I just say for Ohio State fans, let's enjoy every single minute. Let's not fret about anything, worried about the future, but let's just enjoy the present because we've got a run of wide receivers and quarterbacks unlike anything that we've ever seen before. And who knows, Ryan Day could move on and Hartline could move up and be the head coach at Ohio State. They could give him the job and make him the head coach, and the aerial circus will continue. So, hey, who knows what the next 20 years are going to hold?
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, things kind of ebb and flow. Like, I mean, when we had Jim Haycock, everybody was ready to go to him, and he was my senior year. We were number one in total defense. We gave up about 60 yards a game on the ground, and I think less than like 250, for the entirety. So, again, like when you've got runs of fantastic defenses under Mark D'Antoni, Jim Haycock, that ended for a minute. Now it's starting to get back to where it needs to be, and these things kind of ebb and flow at Ohio State. So when someone is in kind of like a golden age type streak, like Brian Hartline is with his wide receiver recruitment and development, I enjoy it because I know it's not going to last forever. Tyler, this is another great question. Nevada, what's your projection for Mike Hall this year as we head into June?
Well, I mean, look, Mike Hall, by all accounts, should have an All-American type of season. I mean, he's a guy that came out of the gate strong, was leading the team in sacks for the interior line, was playing about a third of the snaps. But he's a guy that, I mean, there's no reason that Mike Hall shouldn't be a 6, 7, 8 sack guy from that interior position and just be a wrecking ball. And I don't know how he's not going to get named to some All-American team somewhere, get the tree in the grove, and do his thing. He's absolutely as good as he wants to be. He can, he names his price in practice. He goes after whatever he wants, and when he's going, he's hard to stop. And that's why, when during the spring game, when Michael Hall was making some of those guys look bad, and people were like bagging on the offensive line, it's like, man, Mike Hall's going to make a lot of people look bad. I mean, Mike Hall is just that talented. He's a load. I think he'll be named to an All-American team, whether it's like unanimous or whether it's just one, or whether it's the Tecmo Bowl All-American team or the Kids' Choice Best Slime Award All-American team. I think he's going to get some sort of recognition. I think he's that good, and like I said, I can't wait to see him play. I think he's going to have a tremendous season.
I do too, and I think he reminds me so much of Ed Oliver because not only are they similar in stature, but Ed Oliver also played nose guard, which generally when you have your fast John Randall type pass rushing defensive tackle, you put him at 3 technique over the outside shade of the guard. But we put Mike right over the center, and he's really, really good. He's really good at getting the offhand of the center. The center likes to snap the ball usually with his right hand, his dominant hand. I think almost all of our centers have been right-handed, and he likes to line up over it, snatch it. He has like a couple of moves he does off of the center's snap hand that are really good and they're hard to stop. And when I talk to guys and I ask them, like, look, who are the 2 hardest guys to go against? They say Mike Hall and JT are the 2 guys that are the biggest pains to go against. And again, it varies, because I mean, some guys might have other opinions, but like I said, the players know who the players are. And, Mike's combination of strength and speed is something that I don't think we've seen at defensive tackle. It's, he looks like a Georgia defensive tackle. And so does Tyleek. I mean, those 2 guys, if you put those guys in Georgia Bulldog uniforms, like nobody would bat an eye. And I think that those are guys that now they're finally going to be unleashed because there's no one in front of them. There's no Tehran. There's no Jerron Cage. There's not guys that, that are adequate players that, but, if you're not drafted and you don't, and you sign an undrafted deal, like you're not really to the level that we need to get where we want to go. Like you got to be a draft pick. You got to be, like a higher tier type guy. I mean, when you're a senior at Ohio State, you should be up for all Big Ten, multiple award winner, just because that's what is required at the position. So I'd be stunned if Mike and Tyleek aren't drafted, after this year or next, if they're not up for some sort of all Big Ten consideration, second or first team. So I'm excited to see those guys get unleashed. I think that there's sort of a chemistry, like kind of a hockey line chemistry between the 4 third-year juniors, from JT to Mike Haltnose to Tyleek at 3. Even Ty Hamilton, you can throw him in there, to Jack Sawyer. And there's kind of an undercurrent there's like a very, very small, this is like if you entered a donkey in the Kentucky Derby chance type of bet. But, there's this current of the Picktown boys. There's 4 Pickerington guys on defense now. And, in their wildest dreams, they'd like to all start together. So the 2 Styles boys, Lorenzo Jr., Sonny Styles, Ty Hamilton, and Jack, these guys all played like youth football together. And I could imagine what that team looked like. And I'm sure they were on all different teams because that probably wouldn't have been fair for those guys to all be on the same team. But it'd be interesting to watch that and see if we get anything out of Lorenzo Styles Jr. this year. Nevada, I'm going to wrap this because, God, we went through a lot of time. But what is your projection on Lorenzo Sales Jr. this year? I know that he's converting over to corner, which is really hard to do. I started for Notre Dame against us, had that long catch that basically ended Josh Proctor's season early. What do you project for Lorenzo Sales Jr. this year?
I'm looking at him as a special teams contributor, but would be would be really happy if he is surprised and kind of jumped up and grabbed one of the spots. But I think the cornerback spots right now with Hancock and Brown and Denzel or
Davison.
Davison. I mean, I think we've got some guys there. So I think it's going to be tough to really get meaningful snaps right there. But that's something we're going to be watching during the fall camp. And like you said, we're always listening for the names. The players always know, man. When you talk to the players and you're like, hey, who's it tough to go against? Who's really stepping out? Who's really shining? Who's really the guy that you're keeping your eye on? And you hear the same names from two or three guys. That's when you know, and that's generally stuff that we try to share with you guys as listeners because the players know, the parents know, the coaches know, whether they say it at a media day or not, they know who they're watching, and Styles will definitely be a name that we're watching carefully for in the fall.
The coaches never say anything at media day. I mean, because it's, when you're a coach, again, the coaches get trained by a group that comes in and teaches them how to speak to the media. The players get trained. So it's always as vanilla and filtered as you could ever dream it could be. And plus the other part is like when you're a coach and the parents are going to listen to every word you say. And if you say, my son Kirk, my son Kirk didn't get mentioned by the coach, maybe that means he's not in the running anymore or whatever. Like, I mean, there's always like a double-edged sword to praising one, because if you praise a kid and then you don't praise another kid, then you get a call from that parent. So again, it can be pretty Looney Tunes when you're dealing with some of these parents. I'm just being real. So that's part of the reason why coaches generally don't like doing a lot of interviews, because if they say the wrong thing or they mention how great one guy's doing and then they don't mention another guy, then the other guy's like, oh, do I gotta go hit the portal? Am I out of the running? Like, and really it could just be like, a reporter asks a question about a player and he says, well, yeah, Matt Jones looks great, or Carson Hinsman looks great, or whoever looks great. And then, well, they didn't mention the other two guys, so who knows? I don't know. But it's a tightrope for those guys, and that's why they hate doing these interviews, because like they're always nervous they're going to say something to upset a parent. And some don't care, and some will lie and say they don't care. But it's just you don't have those voicemails on your phone when you get back from the interview saying, well, you didn't say anything about my kid, and you didn't. Should he transfer? And then it's like you got to put out a fire that you didn't even intend to start. So, any final thoughts? That's a good one. Appreciate you guys bringing the heat on these questions. Great questions. Shout out Brass Tacks, my boy, as always, being in here. Any final thoughts, Nevada?
Expansion stuff percolating, probably stuff that we're going to be talking on. Keeping a close eye on the message board here the next 24, 48 hours. But stuff that's near and dear to your heart, expansion percolating, starting to happen. And stuff should be breaking up really shortly, so keep an eye out.
Yeah, and teams testing, so we're going to start to get those testing results. So get ready for some nuggets this week, guys. If you guys aren't on Buckeye Scoop, you're crazy, because the Scoop is killing it right now. We're about to take off. So as always, we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this tonight. Get on BuckeyeScoop.com, because camp is coming. Bill Green is going to be there, just absolutely tearing up camps. We're going to have a ton of people there covering the camps. Can't wait to see the footage we get, some of the stuff we're going to be watching. I'm so excited about the evals, kind of the stuff that we can get, especially out of the young guys. Camps for the older guys are kind of old hat at this point, because most of the offers have been made for the junior and senior class. But this is where you see some of these young freshmen for the first time, see how they look. So it's going to be great. We'll have big updates on BuckeyeScoop.com. So if you guys aren't part of BuckeyeScoop.com, it's time to sign on. I'm telling you, it's going to be a big season. We got huge news coming every week. I mean, now that these guys are getting into conditioning, big updates, we're really excited about it. So, as always, we appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys for being a part of us. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Brass Tacks. Thank you for all the homies on here. I love seeing you guys in here every night, my regulars. So, appreciate you guys. If you can leave a like on the way out the door, that would be huge. Shout out where you're from. As always, click that subscribe button and just tell your friends about us. We love doing these shows. We appreciate you guys. And if you really love these live shows, click that little alert bell so you get the little alert that says, hey, we're going live, and you guys can jump on here and bring the heat, because your questions have been fantastic, and we thank you for that, because these live shows are just so fun to do, and it's all because of you guys. So, and if you really love this stuff, you got to join BuckeyeScoop.com. I'm telling you, once you guys do it, it's like, honestly, it's like owning a pickup truck. Once you have a pickup truck and you realize how great it is and all the stuff you can do with it, you never don't want to have a pickup truck. That's what Buckeye Scoop is. It is the thing that gets you through the day. When you're watching the sporting event, you're watching the finals, you're watching the Memorial Tournament, you're on the scoop the whole time. You're in the game threads for the events. I mean, it is a great community, and I spend all my time on there. So I love it. I'd love for you guys to join us. So appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I will see you guys on BuckeyeScoop.com. Go Bucks.